The Heritage is the first event in a 4-week, 6-tournament stretch on the PGA Tour that will allow the use of distance measuring devices, DMDs, in the circuit's ongoing attempts to speed up play. The use of DMDs is part of a larger plan to address pace of play, which was singled out as an issue in the recent Fan Forward project, along with an adjustment to the Tour's policy on timings starting this week on the Korn Ferry Tour. Quote, "They're going to have an extra tool in their toolbox for 4 weeks, and we're interested in hearing, following that period, how was it? Did you feel it was beneficial? Do you feel it helped you with pace of play?" said Gary Young, a senior vice president of rules and competition for the Tour. Continuing, "I think that's an important point to make about this. There is a beginning and an end to it. And then we're going to take that time to really cram the data and take a look at it," close quote. Players and caddies will be allowed to use DMDs, but only to identify raw distances, not slope or any other information provided by modern DMDs. Violation of the rule will result in a 2-stroke penalty. The PGA Championship, which is run by the PGA of America, already allows players to use DMDs during the tournament, and Korn Ferry Tour held a similar 4-event trial in 2017, but officials hope to learn more about how using DMDs may speed up play. Continuing to Young's comments, quote, "I don't think there was anything concrete that came out of the 2017 trial data-wise. There wasn't a big improvement in round time data, but this particular group felt that field size had a lot to do with it, and especially groupings," close quote. Early this year, the Tour established the Speed of Play Working Group, which includes Sam Burns, Adam Schenk, and Jonathan Vegas, to work with the Player Advisory Council on pace of play improvements. Quoting, "They felt during 2-ball pairs it would be a struggle to stay up a little bit with the group ahead of you," Young said. "Should they start to fall behind, you can quickly get a reference point and calculate yardage. It also may help the groups that are being timed keep up and make up time," close quote. The DMDs trial is part of a wider pace of play focus Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan announced last month at the Players Championship. The Tour will also begin testing a new policy at the Macomb Suncoast Classic on the Korn Ferry Tour this week, and it's already started on the PGA Tour Americas. The adjustment will remove what has essentially been a warning for a bad time and will now apply a 1-stroke penalty for a first offense. Most players don't anticipate the use of DMDs to have much of an impact on pace of play, and world number 1 Scottie Scheffler suggested a more obvious approach to slow play. Quote, "We've been using DMDs at the PGA the last couple of years. Is it going to help pace of play? Maybe a few minutes. Will it be anything significant? No," Scheffler said Tuesday at Harbortown. "This tournament, what affects the pace of play is walking the golf course. I think we're playing twosomes all week, so we'll go from a 5-hour round to maybe 4 hours or less. When you see the biggest changes in pace of play, it all comes from going from 3 guys to 2 guys and pairing. It's just easier to get around the golf course," close quote. Players and caddies anticipate using DMDs when dealing with shots that are well wide of playing corridors, and it's difficult to find a reference point to use a yardage book, as well as a way to confirm yardages on approach shots in tee shots and par 3s. Quoting, "I envision Tom Hoagie standing on the fairway shooting with a DMD, and I'll be getting the numbers traditionally, and we'll do like we always do," said James Edmondson, Hoagie's longtime caddy. "I'll use it when we're offline, but we're still going to use the fronts and backs and carries yardages in the book. If you don't do that, I think you'd get your sequence off. I think if you don't, it's going to be too different for guys. Stick with old habits," close quote. The Tour plans to make a pace of play data available to the public, but officials are still developing a list that addresses average stroke time with some context. For example, if a player averages 38 seconds to hit an approach shot, but that number increases on Friday when the cut is looming or Sunday when the title is on the line. Officials expect to have the list developed within the next month or 2, and it could be available to the public as early as this season. So fascinating stuff there, don't you think, about the distance measuring devices?
I don't think anything's going to work because, in my opinion, there is just nobody out there that is going to get penalized in a manner that is going to make any difference at all. I don't think there are strict enough rules across the board. I don't know, Matt, if you can hear me and you're back again, but all I was saying is that, okay, we can hear Matt again. I don't, my 2 cents are that if they want, and this goes for any sport, not just golf. if you want to make a change that makes a difference, then you need to have serious consequences. So, it's just, if they're not going to do something with serious consequences, nothing's going to change. And I think it's the same way in every sport. Like in the NBA, when someone was going in, you used to be able to hand check them. Like the defender could put their arm on their back. They started calling that. They made a rule change. And the second that arm went up, they called a foul. People were getting fouled out of games like that. They couldn't play anymore in the games. That immediately caused a shift. They didn't have a choice. They had to stop or they wouldn't be able to play in the game because they get called for a foul every time. If they want to make a change, there needs to be serious consequences for every player in the field all the time. And they don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. So it's
just
not going to
thinking
improve.
about what you
That's
just said there, Dom. I bet Bill Lambier someplace rolled over in his easy chair when that
yes,
rule
no, hey, that's what it's like. I mean, I will say this. I think Ludwig Oberg is the greatest thing to ever happen. They can't even get to him on the broadcast fast enough. He hits the ball before they get to him half the time. They're like, all right, let's go down. What did Ludwig do? And they're like, well, Ludwig already hit. He's ready to go immediately every time, and he hits it right away. And if he can do it, anybody can do it.
The difference, Dom, is because you've got a young player that's a very good golfer for his age group, and you're going to see it as advances. What I have seen over the years, because I spent almost 2 decades as a chairman of a big collegiate event, and the pace that the elite players play at is getting slower. It's getting slower because of the mindset is that you have to maintain the same pre-shot routine all the time, because when you're surrounded by crushing pressure, it is the consistency of your routine that will provide you with the best chance to perform under those crushing circumstances. So from the beginning levels of the game, at least at an elite level, very good player level, a player that shows potential to develop, because those are the people that end up becoming ultimately, if they have the wherewithal, a tour player. It's starting at all those levels. So I'll be curious your observations over the next 5 to 10 years in terms of what are you seeing, what are you hearing, and is there an effort being made anywhere at that level where people are going, no, we need to make sure we maintain a pace of play as well as getting in our own little insular world to give us the best chance to perform.
Yeah, but serious consequences fix what you're talking about, in my opinion.
But this is what I'm getting at.
Immediate consequences, immediate fix. Whatever their system is, like you're talking about, they have to have their process. Well, guess what? If you get a 6-shot penalty, you're going to change your process real freaking quick, so you don't get a 6-shot penalty.
Dom, the difference is, and this is what you have to understand, is that they're talking about the application of strokes as a penalty. That is a bridge, that is a divide. The LPGA Tour, the PGA Tour, fines people roll their eyes. When you're trying to make a cut because you need it, because you need the money, and someone says, yeah, we need you to speed it up or it's going to be a $5,000 fine. Well, they might as well fine you $5 million, because either you got someone who has a lot of money and $5,000 is chump money to them, or you've got someone that's struggling to have any money, and finding them $5,000, you might as well fine them $5 million, because it's make or break. So they're not going to go out of their routine. I think the fact that they're going to keep data on players is going to be educational, because I've said this a million times, coming from my golf operations side, coming from the green grass side where I worked professionally, was at least on an amateur level, I haven't found too many slow players who actually know they're slow. It usually comes as a bit of a shock and an offense to them when that is presented. We see it all the time on the golf course level when a ranger says to somebody, hey, you guys need to pick it up, you need to get going, and they get all offended and start screaming and yelling and blah, blah, blah. Right? Think about that, how many times you've seen it. But when strokes are applied to professionals, now you're starting to mess with livelihood, because think about it for a second. You've got the prospect of a fine, which is a lot less than if you miss the cut. So you make the cut on the other side, and you did it because you play at a certain pace, and you do a certain rhythm, and you have a certain pre-shot routine, and you're not changing it for anybody know how. Now all of a sudden, when strokes start to get impacted, now you're talking about livelihood. And so it's a really significant development if that continues. I think the prospect of name them and shame them needs to be stronger in these programs, because even the LPGA is not releasing names. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think on the front end, what the mentality is of the tours is that no, we're just trying to work with people, we're trying to educate people, we're trying to train people, we're trying to make them aware. Well, the other players are aware. The people you're playing next to are aware. When they used to time groups, when you heard the group is on the clock, when usually it was one player that was slow within that group, which seemed very unfair. Which is again this idea of protecting those that are actually causing the problem, and we're getting closer and closer in the game in its highest tiers to going, no, we're not going to protect the guilty anymore. Right? Why do we have to do that? Why are we doing that? Because it's impacting all these other people. I do think I'm not saying that it directly impacted this decision, because I think the wheels were in motion before it, but I think the shot clock on TGL was pretty compelling and pretty interesting. And not that I think they could pump out loudspeakers with the heartbeat on at a PGA Tour event as they get under whatever. But it would be interesting if technology somehow allowed itself so that could kick in. I don't know what it would be. I don't even know how to do that. But
I mean,
it's
I
really
recognize the strokes will make a difference, but threatening and executing are two different things.
That's true.
Like, I think it will make a big difference if it's the final round and there's a guy in the top 5 and he gets a 2-stroke penalty because it takes 4 minutes to do something. That will make a difference. But it hasn't happened yet. They're not doing that yet. Right. They're saying they're going to do these things, but I think that there's a fear, which isn't shocking, right? Especially in the upper tier, like guys in the top 25. I think there's a fear, well, we can't penalize that person because the blowback will be significant. And it's like, listen, man, if you take 3 minutes to do a thing, you should get penalty strokes. Full stop. I don't care who it is. I don't care what round it is. I don't care what's going on. It's too long. It takes too long.
Well, it was so one of the things I was starting to say to you before was in those comments that Todd had last night at Golf Central from players. One of them was from Lucas Glover, and his was the last bit that Todd edited into that piece, and it was fascinating. I mean, Lucas Glover, again, I'm paraphrasing, but Lucas Glover basically said, hey, this is all well and good, but it's too late. We're already going from 125 down to 100. 25 people lost their job. They should have been working on pace of play years ago. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but that was the gist. His comments were so strong, where it kind of hits home more, where someone goes, 25 people lost their job, but it's sport, right? And in the world of sport, I'm driving around up here. I'm back where I'm from. I'm listening to WFAN, and they're talking about, in this case, they're talking about the NFL and who's going to get drafted where and when and all the rest. And I was thinking to myself, professional sports is so cutthroat cold, right? And you're talking about the best of the best. If someone else is marginally not there, they're cut loose, and you don't care because it's professional sport, right? You want the best for your team, which is interesting when you think about that in the context of Tom Brady, where if that stringent decision was made in his part, he might never have become one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not in the history of the NFL. And so when you hear a player like Lucas Glover, a major champion, a guy who's still competitive into his 40s, go, well, this whole initiative, it's great, but it's too late. 25 guys have lost their job. As a fan, do you roll your eyes and go, that's tough luck? If you're one of the 25 guys who lost your job, then make a few more putts and get inside of the top 100 so you keep your job. So it's really interesting, the flow of emotions on either side with this thing. And so anyways, I thought you guys would get a kick out of hearing that as well.